Imagine two leaders managing the exact same team. First one defaults to suspicion when approached. They spend their days watching whether or not people are doing the right thing. How do the people in that team respond? The second leader is open, measured but open. When the team brings information in, it's heard. Both of those bosses think they're just reacting to the culture of the team itself. People are a certain way, so I have to behave a certain way as a leader. But the reality is the teams that we lead are mirroring the posture that we provide, the leadership example that we set. And if you're cynical, the team will be. But if you're open, honest, and you see people for the good as a default posture, that's what you're going to see back. So how do we recognize cynicism and evaluate its costs and avoid them? 3 symptoms to look for in your team. Do leaders react to people's ideas and communication in ways that look like their do people interpret others' ideas in ways seemingly that protect them? Does it feel like the team really isn't telling the whole story? And is a leader the kind of person that prides himself on being a realist? I've seen this happen before. I know better. But even with that experience, they seemingly are alone in their ideas. And the bottom line is cynicism can really feel like wisdom. Battle-tested experience, knowing better, steering clear of common pitfalls. But what you have to determine, is it just a defense mechanism that you're keeping people at arm's length to protect yourself? The trap here is if you think negatively about people's motives, then you start to see results and you align the two and think that people are just not doing their best, when in reality, the result and the motive may not be connected at all. So let's look at how this suspicion can really creep into our attitudes if we're not careful. You don't have to be hostile to be cynical. When we refuse to show any vulnerability, we can have such a defensive posture towards others that we shut everything down coming in. We don't necessarily realize that's what's going on. We think that's the right move. We think we're saving everybody from the inevitable mistake that's about to be made because we're the ones with all the battle-tested experience. And think about that. That's a form of not being able to make yourself vulnerable. Now, you're not going to take a risk with the business that you can't recover from, but you can hear other people's ideas. And when you don't even do that, you got to look at yourself. And what happens over time? It sinks in. We build a habit of doing this, and essentially anything new or challenging coming our way, we are going to downplay it or maybe not even consider it at all. And that could be changing situations. And we talk about humility. Humility is keeping your eyes open to what's going on around you and being able to change direction. But in the case where something does work out, maybe a cynical leader was not in favor of going in a particular direction, we do get a good result. What happens then? You've seen this a lot of times. That's just, we got lucky. And the opposite as well, when there is something that doesn't go as planned, even if it's a little small thing, they make a big deal about how we're on the road to disaster. See, that's why I told you we shouldn't do it that way. And what's the end result here? We have just kind of this cyclical mindset where nothing new gets in. So over time, the world you're operating in isn't the real world at all. You haven't adjusted for the dynamics and the different changing situations that your team is experiencing. And if you think about people who really lean on past experience, that's exactly what that is. Experience is based in the past. What you want to use some of that recognitional-based decision-making from the past, but you always have to be open to change situations that are coming in the future. Now, let's take a little bit more of a systemic approach or a systemic look at what this is going to do to the team. When people don't trust each other or when they take action based off that, that is far more damaging than a positive action, seemingly equal weight. In other words, you got to do maybe 5 or 10 or 20 positive team building activities together to make progress. But that can all be wiped out with one cynical comment. You've probably experienced this. You worked hard on something with a team and somebody comes in from the outside. They weren't participating. They make some sort of backhanded compliment or some sort of remark that really insults everybody that has been working. So there's situations like that people will never ever forget. So that right there shows you how damaging the suspicious or the cynical leader can be. They can wipe out tons of progress with one comment. And let's play that scenario out a little bit. What does the team do after they hear that? They're guarded. They're not talking as much. They're not bringing new ideas. They're not exposing themselves if they think this leader is just going to come in and make fun of it or dismiss it. If nothing else, they're just mad, and they're going to stay mad for a while. And the end result, you have low trust as the leader, but you're now creating low trust from the team towards you. And when the team doesn't trust you, they don't talk to you, they don't bring you the information that you need to make decisions. So now you're, for all intents and purposes, operating in the dark, leading a team with your eyes closed. As this is done over time, not only does the team transform into some really, probably a high turnover team for one, but it turns into a very cautious and fragile and easily offended group. And the leader becomes increasingly isolated from that. So the very experience that you pride yourself on having, you don't get any new experiences. In a lot of ways, you're just living in the past. And then the team that you were leading at one point maybe was very vibrant and happy and high morale, a lot of collaboration, communication, people looking out for each other. But when you bring somebody in, a change in leadership that takes this approach, that's all going to disappear really quickly. You're going to get one of two situations: is people will collaborate on their own and leave the leader out of it, or people will just do their own thing regardless. Now let's think about this. Sometimes it can look like somebody is being wise and tough and decisive, when in reality, they are being cynical. I see what you guys are saying. We're not going to go that direction. This is the direction we're going to go. I've seen this a million times. Let's do it. Sounds like a good, decisive statement, but depending on what the details of it are, there could be several warning signs that you should not go in that direction. So you don't really know. That wasn't enough information to really tell if sounding like that is cynical or not. Being decisive, does it take into account the whole team's observations and experience, or is it just this one person acting unilaterally? That is more likely to be the cynical leader. Another characteristic of leaders who just shoulder everything for themselves, do it their way, their own ideas, is you bring on 100% of the cognitive load. So you spend a lot of time thinking about not just what needs to be done, because that actually gets a low level of thinking, remember, because that's based on your experiences from the past. But you're spending a lot of time guarding against other people bringing new things, because you don't want that. And when you have all that load on yourself, what are you not doing? You're probably not thinking about what's coming next. You're not protecting the team by looking to the future. So what's the difference between cynicism and real discernment, or being able to tell when a new idea is worth pursuing? Fronting a cynical leader is probably not going to have a great result, because they're convinced that they're battle-hardened, they're battle-tested. They're making decisions from a basis of their own wisdom. So we need to find a way to use experience in a productive way, but also be open to making decisions that are more suitable for the future. How do you do that? You want to have a measured level of openness, meaning you don't just do whatever anybody in the team wants to do. You do need to take in information, but you got to have a way to verify the ideas. You should ask people to support the direction they think the team should go. You want to set some boundaries, like don't worry about doing her job. You focus on what you're supposed to be doing. That's an example of a boundary. And you want to have accountability. If somebody brings up an idea and it flops, they can't just disappear. They got to be there when the result is seen, whether it's good or bad. And that right there is a little nuance that you're going to develop over years of getting experience as a leader, and that is how to really keep people engaged in the ideas that they present. If they suggest a direction, you can't just let people disappear. They have to be there taking accountability for their ideas. You may have ultimate accountability as the leader of the team, but you got to have them involved too. They got to feel that responsibility. And the trick is to do all of this as your default posture. So you don't start out by assuming people are trying to get over, they're unknowledgeable, they have ulterior motives. No, you don't start out assuming bad faith. And in the end, discernment is going to expand your influence as a leader. Whereas cynicism is just going to shrink it, like I talked about before. You want more communication coming your way? Extend trust. Go out of your way to show people that you trust and want that information. Why does it require so much energy to be cynical in the first place? It's because you're constantly scanning for threats. You're not open to the best way to do things. You are closed to new ways of doing things. You're deciding based on what you think, and you're not trying to bring the organization down, but you're genuinely convinced that your experience from the past, your assessment of the situation is better than others. That's probably the fundamental change that you need to make, is you got to believe in the power of the group. You may be the most experienced. You might have the most years with the team, but you're not going to overpower the inputs and the mental rigor that a group of 10 people can offer. Once you can do that, once you can just bring in information and not feel like it's got to be your idea, you're going to feel an immediate sense of relief. It may not seem like that. It may seem like it's going to be worse because you don't know if things are going to work out, but there's nothing that guarantees your ideas are going to work out anyway. And you can just get work done. You're not seeing every action, every project as just this coin toss. Is it going to work or is it not going to work? Because you realize some things are going to go your way and some things are not. So you're going to get a lot of energy back if you can work. And this is probably not an overnight mindset shift, but work on what's the worst that can happen if you bring in more of the team's ideas. You're going to get more energy back. You're going to get more time back, which is really what, in a leadership position, is really what people need from you. They need you looking down the road at what's coming. They need you supporting them and making sure they have what they need to be successful. And oh, by the way, people just prefer to work in that environment. So you're probably going to have people sticking around longer. Let's move into our action plan, our principles that should shape the way we think, and our actions, things we can do today. First principle, cynicism shrinks, discernment opens and expands. When you're suspicious, just you know that you're going to have less information, less energy, less time, but openness increases the chances of really getting and understanding the truth, what's really going on. Trust is reciprocal. It goes both ways. So if you start from a position of bad faith towards your people, they come right back to you with that same position, same posture. But the good news is if you set an example of openness, if you model open-mindedness, you're going to get the same thing back. And then 3 is friction slows everything down. Your production is less. It takes more time. You get a worse result. You do less. Instead, think about the standards that you expect and are enforcing. And probably the best way to say that is that cynicism makes what should be very easy difficult, time-consuming, long. And here's actions to take. Take a look at the people that you interact with. Take a look at the projects that you take on. Have you dismissed opportunities for good things to happen in the future for the wrong reasons? Just being defensive, suspicious, not being open-minded. Number 2 is delay your personal intervention. Take one part of the team, work area, and don't jump in and get yourself involved. Now, this might be hard for some of us, but so just a little bit. Maybe delay things by a half a day or a week. Give people some breathing room to do the right thing. Third one is separate the standards or the results from the motive. So if you get a bad result, don't automatically assume it was because somebody had ill intent. We're all susceptible to luck, good and bad luck. Sometimes things are just out of our control and happen for reasons we could never see coming. And then 4, this one you can maybe do like at the beginning of the day or the end of the day. Sit alone and try to take a hard, honest look at cynicism in leaders and try to quantify what it costs the team. How much extra time, how much turnover. If you're someone that likes to see concrete numbers and figures, that might be a good exercise for you. When we're talking about people, it's infinitely complex. You can't control what people think. You can't even really control what they do. The discrete tasks, yes, but you can't control somebody's level of effort. But a lot of times when we think we have the answer, when we have this suspicious outlook, we think we can do that. We ratchet up the controls and the directives. And something that makes this topic a little difficult is you can't just go through the day every day asking people what they think should be done. In fact, that's not a good leadership approach. But you do want to have some information coming in. If it's just the most basic thing that we need people to do, like come to work on time, yeah, just do that. But when you're dealing with external dynamics, your competition, customers, it's so complex. You do need everybody's help. You do need their ideas coming in so that you can make the best decision possible. You have to take all that information and discern the best course of action for the team. And when you're cynical, you exclude all that. You base it off of what you personally think, and it's probably not based on the right factors. Thanks for watching the Lead the Team You Have channel. Consider subscribing and following along. See you next time. Thanks.